But because that becomes so almost obvious, right? Then you can obviously click your own unit. And if you see that your unit can easily travel towards the bottom right, then maybe that's a little bit less good. Anyway, Waddy, it feels great to be here. I'm so sorry to you that I missed the first 2 series. But hey, 9 to go. So I think there's plenty of reason to still be very excited.
Oh, absolutely. In the top right tower, blue Protoss from Mr. Gaming is SCV.
In the bottom left side of this beautiful map that I used to call LC1, but it seems that we have moved away from that. We are looking in the main base of our Taiwanese Protoss. It is nice. Starlight twinkles nice.
LC1. Yeah,
Yeah, man.
I think I first called it Alcayone or something. Yeah, you can really get wild with this name, man. It's but apparently it's Greek god or something. We got a couple Greek gods or myths or something in this map pool, so we got to get all fancy with our pronunciations.
I mean, all that I thought of is if I spent 1 week in Las Vegas, I'm going to go for the most American way possible. And I was like, LC1, that sounds good to me. I knew it was wrong, and every single time I loaded into a lot of game or casted a qualifier, people were like, that's not how you pronounce the map. I was like, I know, but I really don't care. I was like, I'm going to wait until Zombie Grum and Waddy say it. That's what I said all along. Like, you guys, to me, are in charge of how we pronounce map names.
Nice. Well, I'm glad we have such an important role to play. Yeah. You know, it's really funny because usually I figure out these map names at least during like TLMC, but then like 5 of these maps weren't in TLMC, so I was also completely clueless, and I'm like, yeah, just gonna kind of make it up as we go. Google it, forget what I googled. Wonderful stuff. Obviously no ramp on this map, we're kind of just expecting 2 gates each, and we'll see what comes out. There's gonna be stalkers on both sides just for now, so lots of just 2 gating, not a lot of maps with ramp in this map, and if there are, they don't really get picked a lot, Robbie.
No, we got Side Delta, the tiny green map that definitely has a ramp. But a lot of European Protosses, I remember Skillless not too long ago, he was in my chat and he said like, oh, I can't believe he even dared to go 1 gate fast expand on this map pool. And I was like, well, but this map has a ramp. He's like, it doesn't matter, ramp or no ramp. You're not supposed to go 1 gate fast expand. And then his teammate, Mana, was in the chat and he spams a link. And I was like, okay, let me click on it. And it's Skillless 03 max packs, 3 times 1 gate fast expand. I was like, well, you know, maybe some people can go 1 gate fast expand. So I was laughing, some banter between the teammates. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me that I think especially in this region, we're not going to see it a whole lot. And I just think we all got a bit burned out from not even the most recent map. You got to be a little bit careful here if you're SCV, because even if that fight initially goes well, this is a pretty large map, so if you go in deeper, then obviously you're fighting 2 against 4 units. As nice, it's just gonna go for a good old 4 gate. But the funny thing is, Waddy, that he doesn't have anything on the other side of the map. We can obviously get 1 pylon there, but that is still slow warp-ins, right? So why would you do 4 gateways at home?
I have absolutely no idea. It doesn't really make sense, right? I mean, why not just build at least 1 of them out on the map? Get, you know, fast warp-ins are so powerful. I do not think there's any benefit unless maybe it lets you get a gateway sooner. I'm not down with it. I would like to see 1 gateway on the map, but Nice is going to send it anyways. He's going to warp in slowly each and every time. That's going to be brutal. I mean, that could be game-changing.
It can still be good enough here for the man from Taiwan, because even if SCV uses battery overcharge, I actually think with this many Stalkers, if you send them very closely to your opponent, what Nice wants to do is that he wants to run as close as possible to these units, and you can see him doing that immediately. Thought I would be bringing you a couple of close games, Waddy, but I am afraid that SCV is in a lot of trouble here. As the first 3 units died, we don't have the backup battery in the main base, and even now with the Oracle out, I mean, how good is one Oracle really against this many Stalkers of Nice? The answer is not very good.
Not very good at all, as these Stalkers will continue through, and they are just going to go after all the probes. A couple more Stalkers warp in, but when, even if slowly, you're going to have 4 Stalkers at a time, it is just going to be a little bit too much. You can work your way through this probe count. There's nothing good on the way from Nice, from SCV, sorry, because Nice is just going to, you know, have all these probes pulled against him. So SCV can't even afford like a Void Ray to maybe start thinking of holding. Right now, he can't even afford an additional Stalker. Nice is obviously mining unharassed back at home, so he can just keep on warping in Stalker after Stalker, and he will eventually get through all of this army and pick up a fairly swift game number 1.
Yeah, if there was indeed maybe the desperation void ray on the production side, we could have hyped that up, right? Because you look at the HP of those 5 stalkers that are left over in the main base, and you're like, well, one void ray pops, prismatic alignment. I can actually see it win the fight against all 5, but there really just wasn't anything anymore. Yeah, that's basically everything that you were talking about, is that we don't have many ramps anymore. And yeah, even if it's like, oh, 2-gate against 2-gate, we had SCV trying to scout. He had that one probe with the 2 stalkers running towards the bottom left side of the map, but that's basically the only real scout he had. And based on the 2 stalkers that he saw there, he's like, oh well, I guess it's normal, but that's often not good enough in PvP. You can't just run into 2 stalkers on the other side of the map and be like, yeah, it seems fine. I've got 2 stalkers, he's got 2 stalkers, I'm expanding, which must mean that he's expanding. Turns out that it doesn't really go down that way.
Does not really go down that way at all. As we'll get game 2 hosted up in a second, see what SCV and Nice are going to bring us for round 2, but obviously a very good start here from Nice. Quick start, obviously wants to have a successful group stage. He's one of the players we expect to make it through the playoffs after he dominated Taiwan for the last few years. So, getting it done against SCV in game 1 and just not wasting time, man. Not even wasting time to build a gateway on the other side of the map. Just good old, plain old 4-gate, man. Simple as it gets.
Yeah, the only thing we can obviously say about that is that it's a lot harder to find a single probe and a single pylon than it is to find a pylon and a gateway, but yeah, I don't know. I still think I like the regular 3-gate. Maybe the only thing as well is that Nice just felt that if he had to send out 2 probes, that cuts into his economy too much and that just takes too much time. I don't know. I think it's just one of these things that players like to throw in every now and then to just not be predictable. This doesn't mean that Nice is always going to go for 4-gate and only a pylon with slow warpins on the other side of the map. Like, no, he'll probably still go for the 3-gate robo or the 3-gate pressure or the straight up 4-gate with 1-gate proxy. Since PvP is a lot about making it hard for your opponent to figure out what's happening, and definitely not be the guy that if you see 2 stalkers, you know exactly what's happening. But I never really thought of Nice as a predictable player. Like, actually, it was one Katowice where I think I was in the same taxi as Harstem, and I think Harstem had Nice in the first round, and Harstem is like, yeah, he's like, it's not the worst draw, but it's scary, man. He's like, because Nice is just really good at whatever he goes for. If you play too safe, you're gonna beat yourself off for playing too safe and falling behind and playing a frustrating game where you just can't really get a whole lot done. But if you just take a little bit of risk and he punishes you, then you also feel stupid because you're like, oh man, I knew it. I knew that he was gonna do it. I knew he was gonna be aggressive. So I can definitely see how it's a difficult opponent to prepare for, not just for Arsene back then, but even for SCV today.
Well, it is SCV on the top left side for Mystery Gaming, looking to figure out if he can kind of find the balance to make it work out for himself. The second map of this best of 3.
On the bottom right side, we're looking at the main base of that man from Taiwan, taking the 1-0 lead. It is a Nice from Starlight Twinkle. Yeah, one last thing, Wadi, that you mentioned in the previous map is that, like, oh yeah, we don't really have a lot of ramps, whether they are direct or like somewhat near the natural. And it's not even that I think everyone hates playing PvP on maps with a ramp. It is just not the previous map pool, but the map pool before that I think really ruined it for so many Protoss players out there. Where we had Waterfall, Tropical Sacrifice, Stargazers, which basically was a map with a ramp. You had Moondance, Inside and Out I think had a ramp as well. There were just basically 5 out of the 7 maps that we were back then playing on either had an in-base expand or a ramp. And I think that has just really ruined PvP for a lot of people out there on maps with ramps. And now they're like, yeah, if I can go without that for the rest of my life, I'm actually okay with it.
Yeah, no, I think I remember like every single game was just, you got your expansion, you've got the ramp. And it was very, because if someone didn't want to play the maps without the ramp, they just used their 2 vetoes on them, right? So they really got to force it if they wanted it, as we do see one pylon to the right side from Nice, just going to leave it there, not going to leave the probe nearby, so he's just going to put that out as a fake out. He goes double adept this game. Well, it's an adept stalker, the combination of SCV's units to begin with.
The first few weeks on a brand new map pool, and especially now because we got 9 instead of 7 maps, I think are always a little bit intimidating for everyone in PvP, because you just don't really know yet where people want to proxy, what is the most likely spot to proxy, and of course you can always grab that second worker, or you can really split up your first 2 units, but we know how deadly anyone can be. Ooh, we're building a pylon, by the way, mate, in the corner of the main base of SCV. Corner of the main, that is kind of cool. Because we can use that for a slow warp in as well, and it can just be 2 adepts, but 2 adepts can be deadly. The only thing that's kind of sad for Nice is that he already has 2 adepts that are out and about on the map, but yeah, why not?
Yep, that pylon is up. STV has not gone scouting for it, so Nice might just be able to get that cheeky 2 adept warp in, and then, like you say, it's deadly, man. I mean, you spend so much investment to make sure adepts don't shade into your main base. Obviously, if they just warp in, you're probably not anywhere near in position to deal with them, so they're going to get a lot of probes. And a mirror matchup that can be just absolutely deadly from the get-go, so problems abound perhaps as we do see the tech coming up. Stargate will finish here from SCV, so he's going to show us that. Nice, getting his own Nexus. A little bit sooner than SCV, still yet to drop his tech down. He has 400 gas banked up, so he has a lot of choice to make. And he does come to building stuff.
Yeah, this is almost one of these things where you get away with something that you didn't even really think you were gonna get away with. Like, you don't prepare every single game with the fact, okay, I have 4 adepts in the center of the map, and then I'm gonna get a pylon up in my opponent's main, and I'm gonna warp in 2 more adepts there, so maybe that's why the build is a little bit all over the place. But it does look fantastic, because SCV right now is gonna get the heads up that there are 2 adepts in his main, and he's probably gonna be like, WTF, mate? Where the hell were those coming from?
Yep, as we're going to get ourselves 3 kills before the adepts go down, but now he misses the warp in to stop the other adepts coming through, so they will go for just 1 more right now, though. Not quite deep enough to really target fire easily. Oracle out of energy, so now that harassing unit not going to do anything. They're going to shade up into the mineral line even deeper, and we are going to maybe find ourselves 1 or 2 more probes. We are going to find it 6, now 7 kills in total. Good set of damage from it. Nice, and he is going to be ahead of a few workers on that, but SCV has an army lead, but Nice is going to be way faster to blink.
Yeah, and this is a pretty large map. I don't think that SCV can really do a lot with the tiny Stalker advantage he got out of there. Was also not a very big fan of Nice letting the 4 extra depth shade in, especially not when you just see the Oracle pop, right? Like, the immediate damage output of the Oracle when Pulse Beam is still active. I think it was a bit too much. I think there was a lot of potential in having that pylon hidden, even though there's a good chance that SCV would have scouted for it immediately, because he's like, I'm pretty certain I didn't let the first 2 adepts into my main base. But yeah, that didn't really work out. The target fire was also not perfect. But then Nice did do a very good job when he went down to 2 adepts. That he found the 1 probe that was already a bit better than Bruised. Because then he actually had enough damage to still one-shot it. So I thought that was kind of cool. Nice also letting that shield battery finish up. Feels like a bit of a clown fiesta 5.5 minutes into this game, Waddy.
Well, it's only going to get more like that as they both build a Dark Shrine. And obviously we have an Oracle as detection on one side, but we got to make sure we then look after that, because a few Blink Stalkers will get rid of it very quickly. Detection is going to be of utmost importance, and right now Nice has no way to detect at all. He is going to put the Robo down, so he should just about have an OBS in time. Don't actually think that'll be an issue for him. I think the issue will be on the other side, because you only have so many Revelations on a single Oracle.
For a split second, I actually thought that battery was part of a wall-off, but it's not. So it's just a defensive battery on the high ground that you can kind of micro towards. I mean, I guess it's kind of cool then. Bit weird. I have not seen that too many times yet, but I like it. Darksrun is going to finish up as that Robo is 70% done. I mean, you're spot on, mate. And Nice is absolutely the kind of guy that will just pull that trigger as well, right? Where he's like, oh, if I'm warping in a couple of DTs and we have those DTs on the production tab, if he kills the Oracle, the game is pretty much over. SCV is now also warping in his DTs in the bottom side of the map, but at least Nice can crank out an Observer, which always just feels a little more reliable than a single Oracle.
Yep, the DTs together though, and they both get hit by the same Revelation, so both of those denied. That means that Nice does not get in for anything. Now it's SCV's DTs that will try and make a play. That's Nice did not find the Oracle, and yeah, walking both the DTs at the same time isn't great. There is this time the Observer, so both sides will not really do much at all with Dark Templar. Maybe a single kill. Wow.
Yeah, 4 DTs while armies are on the other side of the map get warped in to a side, and somehow 1 probe died. I think that's the least amount of probe casualties I've ever seen for 4 Dark Templar warp in by 2 players.
Yeah, that was on the not supposed to happen side of the scale, as now Stalker show up from SCV. Nice gonna blink straight in to start fighting. That means SCV has the defensive blink available still, and he does use it to get out. So the disengage happens, and we'll see Nice just gonna continue towards that third base. So will SCV, and in a weirdly kind of similar position across the board. Although Nice has an extra immortal, he will also start up charge a bit sooner. So Nice already looking more to the future. There's SCV just trailing behind, getting that forge now, getting a robo facility of his own, and getting set up.
Also, Nice just warped in 2 more adepts on the left side, and he just casually walked into the natural of SCV. SCV's entire army was standing there and said, okay, cool, I guess. I thank you for the tiny donation. Those 2 adepts didn't do anything either. Bit of an odd game, where it's definitely one of these moments where if Nice would have somehow been able to realize that he did some economic damage early, which obviously he could have realized, and that maybe SCV would play it a bit greedy and he would delay that robo for a little while longer. Yeah, you could have just YOLO blinked, killed that Oracle, and then maybe get on top of the Stargate. The game would have been over. But that's one of these things that you really need vision for. Nice just didn't have that vision, so where we thought there was a lot of potential in the DTs, and I would normally say there absolutely was. Unfortunately, it didn't really work out this time around.
Nope. As you see our Stalkers, Neobs making their way to the upper left-hand side. Nice on a bit of a journey across. A couple of batteries are coming by. We just have ourselves the chance for Nice to get a bit aggressive here. And she finds his opponent's observer there, so that's a nice free pick-off to start with as an Archon morphs in. He's obviously got charge, so he can sort of send it here as well. So opportunity abound. Let's just have ourselves the army getting warped, and yeah, Nice is going to try and send it, but there's a couple of stage spots he has to be careful of. Somehow avoids it until he walks in with everything. And that's blink on cooldown for him as well.
Yeah. Somehow avoids it until he kind of blinked into it with his entire army. Now we have SCV who's blinking forward as he's trying to get on top of that immortal. Good pickup at least by Nice. Nice is still able to warp in a lot of extra units though, and I do think SCV needs to be a tiny bit careful because these Zealots, if you can just get on top of the batteries, the Zealots are going to be very good against all these Stalkers. Seems that Nice has a small detection issue though. There's one more observer making his way to the other side of the map. Good turnaround right now. And since Nice is 9 workers behind, I wouldn't have hated if Nice would have just tried a little bit longer. Because the moment you take care of shield batteries, then your Zealots are very good against all the Stalkers of your opponent. Because you can just let the Zealots do their thing, and you can actually kind of blink forward with your own Stalkers. I think by disengaging, knowing that you now have a lot of Zealots, it's going to be a bit harder to find value out of these, unless we just immediately go back for round 2. But I don't see a reason why he didn't try at least one more time. With that kind of an army comp versus the army that he was working with, I kind of think you had to try there, because the larger the Stalker bulk rolls, the less impactful these Zealots are going to be.
Yep, and these Stalkers are going to go jumping now, so the few Zealots will get to go fighting. SCV has the 1 attack upgrade lead as well, as Nice is not able to come any further forward. So this will all get stopped for the moment. We'll take a moment or two to hang out as a couple of extra gates come down. Stalkers and an observer coming up. The charge is about halfway done. Still just seeing our Stalker force moving upwards towards the top side.
While that was happening, we had 2 adepts trying to shade into the natural. They got 3 probe kills, and in the end they shaded into the main base. But SCV had a battery and a cannon there, so the 2 adepts get 4 probes. That is something for Nice, but not really what he needed, because he's still down 16 workers. And you mentioned those upgrades not too long ago, Wadi. That problem is still there. I mean, Nice is just in a bit of trouble. I am very familiar with running around with a lot of Zealots and Stalkers, because I think it is A, very powerful, and B, very easy to execute. And the older you get, Wadi, the more you're looking for those easier builds to execute. But once my opponent is on 4 bases and has Archons and has better upgrades than me and has a 16 worker lead, I have no idea where you're even supposed to go. Like, maybe you can go into the double Robo Disruptor, but it just seems like this is going to be a very difficult game for Nice to really turn this into something. Because this army, I mean, sure, you're going to do all right when it's just a couple Stalkers by itself, but running into the Archons, running into batteries and cannons is going to be ultra difficult with this many Zealots.
Nope, it's going to be very, very tough. I do not think Yeah, you're right. There's not really a good path for Nice to take here. Like, anything he basically sets up to do is going to be a little bit of a disaster. Because, yeah, his opponent's so well set up, and he will have that upgrade lead as well. Even see an SCV invest into the Shadow Stride, so we'll have the DT jumps to be able to utilize as well. More and more benefits to be had here as our couple extra gates come up from Nice on that third base. 4th base is already finished up as well, but obviously up against 5 base of his opponent.
Okay, maybe Nice is going for the absolute classic, where he's like, I'm gonna get out macro by my opponent, but it's part of the game plan, because when we then do fight, I'm gonna have a 144 army supply, he's gonna have 123, and if you can somehow take that fight where you have +2, your opponent has +2, and obviously you have a couple of Archons in the mix as well, it could work out. I still don't know if starting the fight with 42 Zealots, that's 84 army supply of pure Zealot. I mean, I'm a Zealot believer, Waddy, but oh my god, he's making more. 49! He has 49 Zealots.
There's no way, right? Like, if Zealots, if 49 Zealots are this good, then yeah, something's a little bit wrong. Especially because they're all going to fight from one direction, so they're not even going to come in for like some mega surround. Maybe now they'll start to wrap around. We blink forward. SCV is like, there's a lot of Zealots. He's going to start backing away. Yeah. He's hitting the gateway as he runs, so the Zealots get some free damage off. The warping continues from Nice, as he is going to have the army supply lead going into this, albeit the upgrade deficit.
Very smart that SCV is basically sending everything back besides the Stalkers, because that's really annoying. Because Nice knows that if he just chases with a couple Zealots at a time, Zealots charge forward, he's just going to get slowly but steady picked apart. So SCV, I think, realized there where, 2 Archons is good, but if my opponent has this many freaking Zealots, I probably need either a few more Archons, or I should just stay defensive and try to get better upgrades, or go into double Robo and the Robo Bay. And you know what? I would actually like Colossus here from SCV, almost more against this army than Disrupt this.
Yeah. As you see Zealots, Archon Stalkers all coming through, the extra Stalkers coming up. Let's go, as SCV is going to try and make a hold. His Archon goes down, though, so now he doesn't really have to splash here against the Zealots, so they're going to last a lot longer than they ever should do. Nice. Going to keep pushing forward. Super Battery has put in some serious work. It's been healing non-stop throughout this. The Zealot count is starting to drop off, and that's where SCV will finally see a little bit of a better time, as he can start to work his way through the Archons of Nice, and I think he's just about finally getting there.
2 big weapons. I think the stock should actually run temporarily back to the natural, because at least you still have a bit of energy there on that one battery. But you mentioned that overcharged battery, Waddy, the super battery. That was about as big as it's ever going to be in PvP. And that's kind of the problem of maxing out on an army that has 98 army supply or 96 army supply of freaking Zealots. You can't just pretend the stocks aren't there and right click on the battery. You can't really kill it. The Archons had no range, and the Stalker numbers of Nice were just a bit underwhelming. So he knew that was happening, and I think he just kind of closed his eyes and said, well, I have this many Zealots, decent amount of surface area, maybe this is the fight. And it looked somewhat promising, but it's the battery that really saved SCV there.
Yeah, it really was. Just did so much healing throughout, and now Nice is going to struggle, because this is where not having had the work account all this time is really going to come back to bite you. So Nice without that work account really being competitive. He's tried to rebuild, but he's not got quite as much army supply, and I can't imagine a wave 2 is going to even begin to look okay. We'll try and get a cancel on this Nexus, which will go down immediately, but SCV is looking great in this second game, looking to tie us up. Hey, Roddy, you finally brought the back and forth epic games. Just took a little while to warm up, huh?
And this is kind of an odd one, but I'll take it. It's been fun, and SCV is kind of now showing us why we were hyping up a little bit in the pregame segment, because last year he had plenty of these games, right, where he just screamed macro all along. We're like, oh, okay. And most of the time when we see Protoss players that we haven't casted a whole bunch yet, it's like, all right, which kind of aggressive way do you like to play? You know, because that's how a lot of Protoss players rise to fame. But now SCV is just playing a legitimately strong, impressive, straight-up macro game here. Nice is going to go for a bit of a base trade, and I don't hate it, since he's still the one with 28 Zealots, and Zealots are pretty fantastic in base trade scenarios. And since SCV has already made it into a bunch of Disruptors, this is a scenario where you do need to be careful. And SCV didn't really need to find himself in a spot like this, right? So, oh, now we go for like the half recall, Waddy. How's this gonna go, mate?
He recalls out to the far right side, warping into the main base. We'll have a Disruptor there too. It's gonna be difficult for Nice to do much, and he is gonna kind of somewhat get surrounded from all sides, loses his Prism as well. He's going to start backing away. He kind of needs to, because everything else from SCV's come back. The Zealots are going to engage from the bottom side. Stalkers have already blinked. The Disruptor shot finds quite a lot of Zealots to begin with. And it does look as though Nice is just going to struggle to really find the army fight he needs.
Yeah, SCV fortunately still has those bases in the top side of the map, and Nice knows that that is just never going to go anywhere for him. GG gets called after 18 minutes almost of video gaming on Oceanborn. We're all tied up. turns out that you need to make a little more than Zealots. Yeah, I gotta say, I think Nice maybe just got a bit stuck. Maybe Nice had a minor misread as well, or yeah, perhaps it was just that first attack, right? The first one with all the Stalkers and the Zealots, where he thought, this is my moment. I've invested in these units, I've invested in Charge, and it's a cheap upgrade. But Charge is like the temporary power spike into, yeah, it's still very good, still very useful. But we can't just make Zealots forever. And I think the back-to-back stasis traps that he walked and blinked into kind of just ruined his game plan, and he was in a very uncomfortable position ever since. And then you still think back of that first moment, right? Where if he only saw what we could see, you're like, well, mate, no matter how bad that blink is, if you blink forward, you kill an Oracle, you win the game because your opponent has no other detection. Maybe there was like a shield battery powering the pylon, but I think if 2 DTs walk in there, get on top of the Stargate, the game could have been over immediately. But those are impossible calls to make if you're Nice, because imagine if there was a quicker robo, you blink forward, you lose 7 Stalkers to kill an Oracle, and then the Observer pops. Then you feel like you look awfully silly.
Yep. No, one of those games that had so many moments, so many options in the earlier stages, and then it just felt like, everything really went against Nice. And if he just popped those stages towards like a single Zealot, then all of a sudden, he probably does have a push to really do so much for himself. So, we're going to Hector. I still like what Nice did early, but SCV was able to make something of it, stayed ahead, and kept that lead to take it to 1-1. And like I say, going the distance now into Hector.
I'm more of a heck-hate kind of guy.
Heck-hate?
I told you, if I spend 8 days in America for the first time in 5 years, I'm going for the most possible American pronunciation.
Well, we have no choice but to take it. On Heck 8, our Blue Brothers play on the top right side is going to be SCV.
A lot of people having meltdowns over how I pronounced the web names in the beginning. I was like, okay, guys, okay, fine, I get it. Bottom left side, we are looking at the main base of the man who did not make it into the playoffs last season, or if he did, he dropped out very early. And we all kind of expected a little more of him, because we've seen him hang with Europe's finest over the years, every single time we had a Katowice. And I think he's still a player to watch in this region. Hailing from Taiwan, it's Nice.
Definitely was an early exit for him last time. Just expected him to go at least round of 4. And round of 8's obviously good, and on the day he just couldn't quite get through that round of 8. So another attempt here in the winter season. Of course, all in the build-up to Atlanta.
Yeah, but it's funny how quickly our perspective can change, because now if we load into this season, it's not even that I think any less of Nice than I did back then. But now I'm just like, oh yeah, this is a very tough region, and I wouldn't be ultra surprised if he has a similar performance. And it's not because I think he got worse. This is more because I feel like the Chinese scene has a lot of strong players that are very dangerous. It's definitely not just the world champ. You know, it's like a couple months and now all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, I can see him do all right. But if he now makes top 4, I'd be impressed. Well, maybe the previous time we kind of expected it. Now I'd be very impressed.
This region really developed in our eyes over the last season, and you're right, it is just such a strong region. It's especially the Chinese portion of it. Like, the Chinese players have really kind of kept it up, and when you look at the numbers, this region is dominated by Chinese players. There's so many of them in here. They really kind of fill in the gaps and the kind of the lower end of the qualification process. So really interesting to see so many of them. SCV being one of those guys.
Yeah, made it into the quarterfinals in the previous season, lost to Coffee, and I'm like, well, there's no shame in that. Like, we saw, I think the most famous TVP that Coffee ever played was against the Zaun at the most recent IEM Katowice, where we had a big upset in the first day. And I remember getting into that, I was like, oh yeah, I can see Coffee do well. And, you know, even on that patch, I was like, TVP can be pretty scary. Coffee just played incredibly good, and it wasn't even a lucky victory, it was just very complete across the board from the very beginning till the very end of that best of 3. And yeah, if Nice runs into a Coffee again in the quarterfinals, Wadi, it's possible, but I still don't think it's likely that he wins a best of 5 like that.
Coffee really leveled up a little bit the last year or so, didn't he? Also just a player that just took it one extra step. We've heard about him for a long time. He's always been there, and he just took like a little bit of an extra step forward again.
Got adapts into Stargate once more on the side of Nice, while SCV is just gonna try to expand again. Honestly, kudos to him after that first game. I'd be a tiny bit paranoid about expanding early, but in a weird way, you always feel a little bit better once you see adapts, because you know adapts are deadly against your workers, but then you don't have to worry about 8 Stalkers running into your natural and winning the game straight up, because the Stalker into expand into yeah, well, in this case it is a Robo, but if you would have gone Stargate, it's risky. It's possible to hold, but it's just risky and very, very difficult.
It just really feels as though you're taking all the precautions, right? Now you got the Robo up, one of the safer ways to set. You know, access to detection, vision with the Observer in general. And if you really need it, you crank out an Immortal, and you're very safe. But it comes at the cost of not having as much map control and mobility. With units on the map as this Oracle, I'm going to show up for a couple of kills now. Those probes transferring, not helping themselves.
No. Thought it was going to be a bit worse than only 2. I think only losing 2 works there is alrighty. If you know your opponent opened up with the depths, and now you see an Oracle, you're like, okay, that's a set of units that is all very good against my probes. I don't think I'm in any danger of ever losing my expand. So I would start off with the Observers here, at the very bare minimum 1, but maybe even 2, because there is just no need right now to put a lot of supply and that many resources into an Immortal. Because for what, right? Like, you're not going to need an Immortal against Oracles and Adepts. So I like the choice of just going for Observers here.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to play it, as we are going to get a few more probes. Oracles are back. I'm going to knock it up to now 5 total kills in the game, so... yeah, diving in there, that was with a couple of Adepts as well to try and take some of the attention, some of the heat off those Oracles up in the skies.
See, maybe Nice was a tiny bit concerned too, maybe about SCV perhaps building a Warp Prism, because if a Warp Prism and 8 Stalkers run to the other side of the map, with or without Blink, it'd be pretty difficult, right? If you've opened up double Stargate, you try to expand yourself, and you've made a total of at least 3 Adepts, and I guess that's what it is, 3 Adepts, triple sentry. Definitely an alt setup here for Nice, but sure. It makes him happy, it makes me happy, what?
Yeah, if he likes the setup, then who am I to criticize? Let's go for it. That's what makes him gonna play StarCraft. And roll with it, why not? He's gonna be a bit late on the Twilight Council, his own Robo cranking out an Immortal. And again, just gonna keep on perusing with those Oracles, really looking to use those as his way of just checking what's up. He's got a Stasis Ward in both the potential third bases, so nothing's gonna happen without him knowing.
No, and this is the nice thing about Nice, because right now you're like, okay, we're eventually heading in the same direction, but I'm the one with all the map vision on your side of the map. I'm the one with a tiny bit of map presence as well, because of those stasis traps. And yeah, I think 6 minutes into this deciding third game of obviously just the opening round of the Swiss format for both of these players. So there is no need to panic for either of them if this goes wrong today. It's still very early in the tournament. But I think Nice is loving his setup in the end. I think this is one of these... openings where, okay, if everything goes kind of according to plan, you don't lose any of your Oracles, you can keep your opponent at home, you get away with all of it. I think any sort of aggression that would have been thrown towards him, and don't get fooled by a Nexus, right? Because how many fake Nexi haven't we seen over all these years in PvP? Just because your opponent expands first, that doesn't mean they won't attack you first as well. But since that didn't happen, I think everything kind of went according to game plan for Nice, and he should be very happy with where he's heading in this game.
Hallucination will get shut down, so not any continued information there, but yeah, he's really doing everything he wants to. Dark Shrine and Temple Archives at the same time, so he is nothing's slowing him down. I mean, if SCV was to go, even now, you know, Nice is being that greedy in terms of the amount of tech he's building. It maybe be a thing, but of course, Nice only on 2 bases isn't going to make SCV want to go and attack, so wild time for sure.
And Nice is actually the one who's down 8 workers and indeed has a much later third base, which I think was a bit unnecessary, right? Because he had all that vision. The worker counts were dead even. You have the potential to keep A, your opponent at home because they cannot leave, and B, you had stasis traps, but maybe Nice says, well, I'm just going to go ahead and try to win this game on 2 bases. How about them apples? And we are not against that, Wadi, but then why are we getting a Templar Archives and a Dark Shrine at the same time? Obviously, it's going to be one of these moments where you question it, and then maybe the DTs just completely go to town on the entire main base of SCV. Well, Nice can poke, perhaps, with his ground army, but while we are starting this sentence, or at least I did, now we see a third Nexus, and I'm kind of lost. Like, why is Nice down 14 workers when we're dead even in workers a while ago?
Yeah, I was kind of fine with the build when I was like, okay, I'm sure Nice has got some kind of plan here, but it just feels so disjointed now. Now it doesn't feel like he really knows what he wanted to get done, and well, Oracles are going to fly in on the upper right-hand side. Nice is going to come through there, and he's going to try and maybe get some damage done to lower the worker difference, but he's in serious trouble.
DT's in the main. DT's in the main. Warp Prism flew in, so this is kind of cute, but only 3 workers is not exactly what you're looking for, especially not if these two Dark Templars are going to fall as well. At least you're gonna get a few more. Now Nice is grabbing his main arm, and he's like, ha! Feels like I'm creating a little bit of chaos. Maybe I should do something with that big ground force that I also have, while my opponent is scrambling to make sure that he's got units in place in the main, natural, and third base at the same time. Like, you used the word disjointed, and I think that really went for this sequence of events as well. Because imagine if it's first the DTs, then the Oracles, and then your main army is right there too. This would have been so difficult for Nice, and most likely he would have just given up on one of the 3 bases temporarily to then deal with at least the big ground army of Nice. It's not that we hate Nice's position, it just feels a little bit random.
Yeah, no, it's nothing really kind of makes sense so far, but we are about to see Nice on +2 attacks. He's going to have a great upgrade lead, and maybe if he can just send this ground army, maybe that's where it's still going to look good for him. So let's see if he can get it done. +2 to the 0-0. Let's see if it's going to be enough. Warping in the units, he does have the Prism here as well. Revelation, so he sees what and where he's fighting into. All of that good information to have as our units wrap around the top side.
What is interesting is that he's got 4 Archons against a man that's very Stalker heavy on this side of SCV. But obviously it's not so much about these Archons, they're still high HP units, it's more about these Immortals. As long as Nice has the Immortals alive, he's got a lot of potential here. Nice, I think it's just kind of trying to figure out, no, that is not the right, what on earth is happening there, Wadi? That Immortal was close to dying 3 times, and after that said, no, I want more, this is not enough yet. SCV is definitely starting to do a pretty decent job. Good news for Nice, though, is that he still has 3 Immortals, and they hit like a truck with +2.
Yep, that upgrade difference, that those tech units definitely making a difference right now. But now it's Nice is just taking a lot of free damage as he backs away. Now he's going to re-engage through. Guardian shields on either side, and a couple of force fields come down as well. Once more, Nice is going to stop his continued attack. And SCV is kind of chasing him, doesn't really have to. Again, SCV is the one that's good to just sit here and sort of let Nice attack into him. About to have his own attack upgrade. He loses one Immortal. Good force fields there, catching that. +1 now finished, so the upgrade deficit not as big as it was.
Yeah, I mean, you can see that Nice is trying to do whatever the hell he can to make sure that the Immortals fire at all costs. I don't know if SCV really needed to chase out this far, because he was actually doing really good when it was Stalker only. And the moment he started bringing some other units, it kind of forced him to fight. He could blink forward, snipe the Warp Prism if he wants to. He's not going to do that. Not down the ramp, obviously, but towards the top left side. I think that would have been kind of safe. But maybe he was worried about Nice is turning around and fighting immediately. Gotta say though, I'm definitely feeling the Stalker control coming out of SCV, and this attack to me was a bit weird. Now he is going to blink forward, shaves off a few more of these Zealots, and the Archons and the Sentries are really not that important. It's all about the Immortals here, and I think SCV knows that.
Force fields are Nice, catch a few of those Stalkers, and especially with blink on cooldown, they can't get away. Nice just kites on backwards, letting SCV run into him. And just trying to, well, bring this game back into his own hands a little bit. I mean, he still has the army supply lead, as he's now backed all the way up. He'll continue into his own +3 as well. And it looks as though SCV ain't done. He's going to poke in at least with these Stalkers. He has the mobility with them, so has a chance to poke in, see what's up, and then back away if he needs to.
Yeah, there are 4 Immortals in a battery here, though, so I don't think it's too scary for Nice. But I understand SCV trying, because he's like, all right, I've got the more mobile army, as the Warp Prism with a couple of Zealots is gonna fly over a cannon and a battery on the other side of the map. Good job by SCV, having a few Stalkers still left defensively. In the end, a single cannon goes down for 4 Zealots and a Warp Prism. That Stalker will barely survive. I kind of thought, what if Nice would have just gone for it with that big army that he had, right, where you have all these high speed units. I think it would have been pretty difficult, but by kind of standing at the edge and staying out of range, where you're like, yes, no, yes, no. And it is hard to micro that army of Nice, because as clumsy as an army as it is, you kind of want the Immortals to always fight. You want the Zealots to be barely in front of them, but not run away from the Immortals, because you don't want to open the door for a potential forward blink, because the Sentries and the Archons won't protect your Immortals. So it's a bit of an awkward army to control, but I still wish he would have just gone for it rather than what he ended up doing, which I don't know, it wasn't really a whole lot.
SCV gets behind this army of Nice as Nice just tries to move forward a little bit. SCV dives in, gets a couple structures, and just finding a little bit of value, but needs to be careful. The proper units are coming across again. This army, if it was just to stand in range constantly, it would be amazing. 6 Immortals, a bunch of Archons, but again, it's the mobility. 47 Stalkers of SCV that he can somewhat rely on. Nice. Can he force a fight?
I think at this point you can let the Immortals lead the charge, though, because even if your opponent lines up with a Stalker and kills one of your Immortals, so what? You've got like 4 or 5 more. Don't forget that these Immortals have +3 as well, so they deal a tremendous amount of damage. And seeing these Stalkers pick up... Oh, that's a big misclick on the side of SCV, as he's trying to control 2 groups of armies at once, or 2 groups of Stalkers at once, rather. And you can really see Nice now having a bit more confidence in his army, saying like, alright, even if you pick up an Archon or an Immortal here or there, it's not that important. And the 200 supply of Stalkers became a whole lot less for SCV over the last 20 seconds. I mean, that was probably the strongest 20 seconds for Nice in this entire game.
Yeah, no, actually looked good for him. Really good fights, good trades, picking up some actual value. First time his army really looked capable of actually taking a fight, and like, that's crazy because it's been good the entire time. It's just never found itself in the right positions. Now, obviously he wants to build on that momentum. He's going to come pushing across, and this is where the pure Stalkers are not going to look so hot. There is going to be a disruptor added in from SCV. Can that get the glory shot to try and maybe make something happen? There we go. Fires forward, going to hit pretty big, but doesn't really kill too much. Just softens up an Immortal and an Archon. And there's still a lot of tech units here from Nice. He's going to send his Stalkers on the natural and then zone with all of those tech units.
Yep, 1 Immortal is low on HP, 1 Archon low on HP. First Archon does go down, but I think that's okay. Now we are fighting in range of a battery overcharge, though. And I think that Nice will remember that fight with the 49 Zealots as he too blinks forward to gun down that Disruptor. Big deal. There are a couple of probes dying in the natural, but I think overall good defense there by SCV, who's now down only a single upgrade. And if you can get your hands on a few more of these Disruptors, not to take care of the Stalkers, right? Because his own Stalkers can take care of it. But Immortals do kind of like to stay close to each other. So a single Nova can deal a tremendous amount of damage to 3 or 4 Immortals that are right next to each other. And where it looked almost impossible for SCV to defend, right? With Stalker only. 40. Now, a minute has gone by and we're like, huh. Looks alright again for that blue Protoss, doesn't it? As he blinks forward, snipes another Archon. What a game.
What a game. Just keeps on defending, keeps on pushing. Nice back, and as now going to lose actually a few probes on this base, but as overall be mining so much more, has been able to rebuild throughout, and actually going to jump forward and get a few kills extra himself. Will protect the base. And again, if we can just buy enough time to like actually get a few more Disruptors out, and his Disruptor count actually gets scary, even better for him.
Because Nice doesn't have a good answer for Disruptors. Obviously doesn't have his own. Has gone up to 20 Stalkers now, but it's so hard to blink forward with these Stalkers because that means that the rest of his army is not immediately participating in the fight. Good force field there again as the last Archon does die, but Archons in a mass Stalker game are... They're kind of just there to soak up that volley, right? So your Immortals don't get targeted immediately. Other than that, I don't think they really have much of a purpose at the moment, so losing an Archon or 2 is not that bad for Nice. The fact that he's still on 48 probes is a problem, as he does blink forward, drops a few more nice force fields. Those Stalkers were not able to escape, and has now killed, I think, 4 Disruptors? No, 3 Disruptors already. That is pretty good, but obviously they will just keep on coming, those Disruptors on the side of SCV, even after that base in the center of the map that is not really a rich base, but is also not, you know, it's super standard base. Even after that one goes down, SCV still has the income to just complement his army, 1 Disruptor at a time, and slowly but steady get himself in a very good spot.
Nice just lost all of his observers, so DTs are more of a factor right now as well, and those DTs are powered up with their Shadow Stride as well, so that could be a factor on the army even, and it doesn't look as though SCV tries to take advantage. Yeah, he's just going to send the DTs around the left, which they might be able to get on this base, jump on the cannon quickly. Nice is still fighting out on the map, looking to hunt for this army of SCV, which goes running back up. Couple force fields, and again, going to find himself trapped. Again, the DTs striking at the same time, and they will really wreak havoc.
Yep, 1 observer was just produced. Where is that observer? It's making his way over towards the left, so that is actually kind of nice. This could have been a whole lot worse for the Taiwanese Protoss, but it's just frustrating because you know the longer this goes, the worse it gets for you because your opponent could get way more Disruptors, and that's where your Immortals are really going to struggle. Nice definitely does not have the tech to or the income right now to drop his own Robo Bay and start building his own Disruptors. can't really start building Phoenixes because his opponent has a ridiculous amount of Stalkers. So the only real answer he has for the Disruptors is hope that the shots do not deal too much damage. And yeah, that often works until it doesn't. And if it one time doesn't work out, you're just going to lose the game immediately. This could already be a pretty devastating shot. Not as bad as we've seen in the past, but still one that absolutely hurts, especially if you're on 45 workers.
Yep, rebuilding is nice. He's working on trying to max out, but shots like that are just going to keep him further away from it. He's also trying to add stack defense in case of further DTs. Well, it does feel as though SCV's army is just that much better at this point. Another big disruptor shot goes dead center. That is a big deal. And SCV is now up 60 supply in total, 40 of it in army. And even an upgrade deficit is not going to catch too much when those numbers are in play.
Yeah, it's starting to look like this is going to be the beginning of the end because SCV has done such a good job with these Stalkers throughout the entirety of this game. Not once, but twice. There was a terrifying army with a whole bunch of Immortals running to the other side of the map. And I'm sure some people thought, why on earth is this man just building Stalkers? You cannot win PvP by just building Stalkers. And he's like, well, no, actually, you kind of can. And I do think that Nice helped him a little bit, kind of just being indecisive. As at this point, I don't think that's the case anymore. Now it's just very hard, right, for Nice to get a good fight. But early, I really thought there were some moments like, believe in your army, mate. You've got Archons, you've got Immortals, you've got a lot of high XP units that hit strong, especially against Stalkers only, with the upgrade advantage, +3 against +1. I don't know how SCV was able to keep Nice at bay, but he somehow did it, Wadi, and he's now closing out this very important Game 3. That's a great start for him.
That's an amazing start for him, and now he's going to have to do some work in the rest of this Swiss group stage because he is going to be behind. And SCV absolutely looking like a force. He honestly had Nice looking pretty lost at parts of this PvP in general. And yeah, it was a wild one. GG's are called, and SCV is going to come out with the win 2-1 over Nice.